Imaginacon 2019. We are super excited to have for our cosplay panelists this year the representatives of Satyr Day Productions, Greg and CrystalRavyn Jones. They are very talented. They make a lot of their own props and their own costumes, which we'll get to in a little bit. But they really love specializing in their original characters, and they have done, their biography is several pages long. So I'm going to let them talk a little bit more about themselves, but they are phenomenal, and we're very excited to have them here today, and they are also going to be our judges for our cosplay contest later.
Hello and welcome. I'm CrystalRavyn, this is Greg. You can pretty well tell who's who there, I think. And we are Satyr Day Productions. We got together and founded SDP, as we like to call it, in 2014 after he took me to my very first convention. Didn't have money to get in, so all we did was we walked up and down the concourse outside the main area and talked to a lot of the people in costume. And I kept looking at these fantastic people wearing these awesome costumes and said, I know how they did this. I know how I could do that. This is something I could do. And we took off, and we've been doing this ever since. To give a little background, we're also members of a Lucasfilm-approved costuming club called the Sith Dynasty, hence the Sith costumes. They're a wonderful group, do a lot of charity work, based out of Louisville, Kentucky. So we're very active with them. And we go around and do this because this is what we absolutely love to do. I will not lie to you. To do it to the extent that we do can cost you money, it can cost you time. However, we think it's very, very well worth it. We've done a little bit of everything. We love our original characters. These are original characters based in the Star Wars universe. The other thing that we specialize in is twists on existing characters. For example, you see a lot of Zatannas around your various events. It's very easy to do. Black corset, black tail jacket, little top hat, fishnet stockings. I give her a steampunk twist. Mine wears Victorian boots, wears Victorian stockings, has a bustle. The hat's done Victorian style. There's a wonderful world upon world of things that you can do with your imagination. Just let it run free. If I could give one piece of advice, don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't cosplay, or that this character isn't from the movie, this character isn't from the comic book. This is called cosplay for a reason. Let your imagination run free. So does anybody have any questions? You, sir.
How did you just decide what to do with them?
How do I decide what to do with them? Well, basically I look at the character and just let my imagination run free. How could I change this? How could I keep the same basic character, the same colors, the same hair, the same overall style, and give it a twist? Zatanna, for example, she wears little magician's outfit. How do you take that and make it something else? I study various styles: Art Deco, Victorian, Edwardian. I'm a big history buff, and one of the greatest parts of history is studying about how people looked, how they lived, what they did, and clothing is a huge part of that. So you can go through and say, okay, she wears an ordinary tail jacket, but what if I put lots of fancy lace on it and some pretty gold buttons, maybe used a jacket with a dark stripe on it instead? That way you can make it something other than what it is and still keep the same basis of the character.
One other characters that we had too, you might be more familiar with. You've seen Fantastic Beasts. So remember when they're in the little nightclub and you had the troll bar owner? So we took it a step farther. So I came up with an idea based off some other characters that we had. We do satyrs. You know what a satyr is, half man, half goat, like Mr. Tumnus from Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, but I'm known as the Goat Father. So basically I put my satyr on, the suit, I'm more like a satyr gangster. And this would be my wife. She's human, of course I'm satyr. We're on the run from the magic with
Makusa.
the Makusa. Sorry, okay.
I'm yanking his card.
Yeah, I get old, so anyway. But so we're on the run from the Makusa. Why? Because relationships with magical creatures are frowned upon anyway, but because she married one, and so we have this little child. And she created a little baby doll with satyr legs, horns, and so this is a twist on the Fantastic Beasts. We come up with something and we go with it.
Yeah, your imagination is the only limit you have. Yes, ma'am.
It's not really a question, but I just love how fancy and all that stuff you guys do.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
I mean, one of the first, when we got married, I mean, I've known her since we were 17, but we got married about 16 years ago. When I brought her down to Tennessee, yes, we started out, I took her to one of her first cosplay events down in Nashville. Was it Wizard World? Wizard World. And we just walked the Concord at the time, just walking around and seeing, we didn't have a whole lot of money at the time. I've always wanted to, but never could. It was never really got into it. Just didn't have time, and there was a lot of stuff. But yes, she knows how to create things and put it all together. I can to some degree, but I'm a visionary. I see a concept. We sit down, we talk about it, and she pretty much goes from there. If some more detailed things, like maybe some electrical or something, soldering, wiring, I might get it. I'll get into that and help her there. But she can put it all together. So this is where we start combining our talents, and this is where we parallel each other in our talents. I'm a visionary. She makes it happen.
But I will say this, you don't have to know anything about electrical work or wiring or sewing, although every cosplayer should know the basics of sewing. A lot of us don't have the room or the time. And I like to do what's called cosplay out of your closet. I have a huge store of stuff that I have found at yard sales, Goodwill, antique malls. A few things that I found on eBay and Etsy. I mean, you're pretty well only limited by your budget. But you can find enough stuff at your thrift stores and your local Goodwill and all that to make several different fantastic characters, because there's a lot of them out there that you can just cosplay from your closet. Jessica Jones, very easy. Black boots, black pants, shirt, the jacket. Wigs are easy to find and are fairly cheap.
Cosplay out of your closet, to expand upon it. This, what I have here, which I call Sith Assassin. Cyborg style, half man, half Sith, basically, human. 15 minutes. I had it. I had the. If everybody probably sees it, it's a Terminator mask. Not too many people recognize it, but I had it. I had it sitting on top of a dresser for several years now. What do I do with it? What do I do? And then I think, we went someplace. Oh, I'll do something different. So I took my my Darth Ominous, part of the from our group that we're part of. So I took my robes. I play a steampunk Batman every once in a while too. I took the bracers here, put them on, pair of leather gloves, my black boots, and Sith Assassin was born.
Literally took him 15 minutes. Yes.
Any tips for making armor?
Okay. The best way that I can tell you to do that, if you're, a little bit more follow along and visual, there are plenty of YouTube videos on EVA armor. There's some great stuff on Pinterest. This is where we started. I don't do too many characters anymore with, the actual EVA armor. I've, started going in a different direction, but when I did work like that, those are your absolute best resources for instructions and follow along. And there are some absolutely dynamite videos out there.
So you say the armor, biker, cross-country style motocross armor. Good base too. Even if you did use this, start out with this. You can do a paintball vest as well too. I have a jacket at home that has the pads on it. So you could even take that and expand and add to it.
Yep.
And not to mention the EVA, using bits and pieces of EVA. Matter of fact, my steampunk Batman, my post-apoc Batman that we had. She took the Batman cowl, used EVA, and painted it, and stressed it to make it look armorish.
Absolutely. And another great way to do stuff is to take something you already have, add to it, alter it. We call it found object art. That's how I make a lot of the weapons that I make. I specialize in making weapons, steampunk, dieselpunk, post-apocalyptic. Pretty much everything that you can see on our page on Facebook has been made from ordinary household objects. And again, you're only limited by imagination. I'll take a box of just random junk, literally just junk, broken bits and pieces, other stuff that people just don't want anymore. I'll lay it out and I'll just start laying it down. Hey, those two things look good together. Okay, those two things go here. Then pull out a few other things. Basically, I get the shape that I want. I glue everything together, give it a base coat, and then go painting from there. And maybe add a few little bit, more bits and pieces on top of it all. There's amazing things that you can do just with a box of junk, old clothes from your closet. There are so many things that you can do. And when it comes to, putting lights, things like that in there, again, you don't have to be an expert electrician for this. There are plenty of little itty bitty self-contained lights, some that you can buy at Walmart, some you buy off eBay, little self-contained battery pack. Stick those things in there and they look just as good as anything that you built from Radio Shack parts and cobbled together yourself. It can all be done no matter what your level of building expertise.
If anybody's ever done a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle, think of it that way. When you start looking, it's almost like putting an oversized jigsaw puzzle. And don't worry about what others think. What comes to your mind? What looks good to you? It's all about what you're happy with. You have to think, just how in depth. Sometimes I look at it, my wife will look at it and say, well, is it function? What would it be almost real life function? You can go that route, but if you just want to say, I like it, but it's your world. Make it to what you want.
It's your world, you build it. And of course, you've got folks like us that are always willing to offer advice, point you in the right direction of an instruction or a great place to find components that you're looking for. We're all supposed to be one big happy family in the cosplay world. We're all supposed to support each other and help each other out, and this is what he and I do. This is why our page exists. Somebody, hey, I'm looking for such and such a thing, can you point me in the right direction? Okay, here's a good resource, here's a good resource, here's a good resource. And the rest is up to you. Anybody else?
Do you have experience in wig making?
In what?
Wig making?
Wig making? No, I generally buy mine. However, there are lots of great tutorials out there. Best thing to do is just Google it and look down the very vast list of what you're going to get. I don't generally recommend one tutorial over the other because everybody looks at things a little differently, everybody learns differently. Go down, watch a few, read a few, and see what speaks to you. Absolutely. Now, that being said, there are ways to alter wigs where you don't actually have to put it all together from scratch, which I can tell you takes a long time. But there's a lot of things out there that you can do. One of the complaints that I get from folks is, well, I can't afford, a $110, human hair hybrid wig. All I've got is this, costume one that I bought at Spirit Halloween, but it's so shiny and it's so fake looking. What can I do to make it look real? One easy answer: baby powder. Baby powder. That will take the shine out and make it look more like real hair. When it comes to painting, one of the biggest things that I have gotten when people try to paint their own props is, well, I'm using this thing that's kind of cheap plastic and the paint won't stick to it. What do you do when the doggone paint won't stick? Elmer's glue and Dawn dish soap. I actually Googled this because I was painting a piece and the paint kept peeling off because I was using something that was rather cheap and Chinese oil-based plastic, and the paint would not stick for nothing. So in a moment of frustration, I actually got on my phone and I Googled, what do you do when the doggone paint won't stick? And there's actually an article out there that's titled just that. Basically, add a little Elmer's glue because it dries clear. Add a couple of drops of Dawn dish soap to your paint. Mix it all up. It dries exactly the same color as what you intended in the first place. The Dawn dish detergent helps break the surface tension of water-based paint, so it will actually stick. And the Elmer's glue is a binding agent. You use that, paint it on, and I guarantee your paint will stick to anything. Even the dog. Don't ask me how I know that.
Our 5 dogs run when you get that thing. So,
Or the wire. Anybody else?
Do you have a favorite character or genre that you like to portray?
Oh, heavens, where do I start?
The very beginning.
well, actually, one of the first things, it's starting to kind of die a little bit, but steampunk. We actually, one of the first things other than hence Satyr Day Productions, we got into our satyrs. That's our favorite when we go to the Renaissance Festival. We try to go a couple times a year. Unfortunately, this year. But anyway, but steampunk is another one. She has her Captain Zinnia and Dr. Dirigible for me.
Yes, ma'am.
Which Renaissance fair do you go to?
We have been known to go to the Tennessee Renaissance Festival. We've also gone to the Kentucky Highlands Renaissance Festival. And we've been invited up to the Ohio Ren Fair. And then we're still working out the details of that one. Many, many years ago, we used to go to the Kansas City Renaissance Fair, which is an absolutely huge thing. We're originally from Kansas City, Missouri. My parents live not too far from the fair site, so it's an easy one for us to go to. But we generally try to concentrate on strictly local stuff. We do a lot of out-of-town stuff, enough that when we can do local, we're going to, because that way no hotel room, no boarding of 5 dogs and 5 cats. And local events are a little bit easier, especially in the pocketbook, because hotels, let's face it, are not cheap. Even the cheap ones aren't cheap.
And don't let people say the one thing, when you do your cosplay, one of the things that we've seen, you'll ask, well, did you make your whole costume from the ground floor up? But we look at it this way, repurposed items too. I mean, are good things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't ever let anybody faze you with the so-called rules of cosplay. One of the reasons why I love to do the characters that we do, or the versions of characters that we do, is because I like to do what everybody else is doing. I don't. I mean, Harley Quinn, Zatanna, all of that, those are wonderful and beautiful characters, and I find something to love in every genre, in every subgenre, in every aspect that you could possibly cosplay. There's always something to love within it. However, I go to
Come on
conventions.
upstairs. We are about to start the best race ever. Mario Kart again. Come on upstairs. We're gonna play Mario Kart. You can throw bananas at people. You
No
can
problem.
but
Not a
come
problem.
upstairs and
Editing is a good thing,
like
Yes.
or so my videographer daughter keeps telling me. But, where was I? It's a terrible thing when you get to my age and a train of thought
But
derails.
feel free to crossovers, genre crossovers.
Oh, yeah.
Harry Potter mashups, Harry Potter.
Mashups.
One of the things that we talked about one time, what happens if you mash up Marvel and the Harry Potter world? You know, like the houses, Slytherin, Hufflepuff.
Who would be in
Yeah,
which?
who would be which? And what happens if you say, like, okay, you have Iron Man, who's in part of what am I calling it? But maybe it's Slytherin or something. You know what? You're sitting there. Maybe he would have a more of a special talent geared towards that. So, and his robes would look more like the Iron Man suit. So, you know, I mean, it's something to cross your genre, mashup genres.
Thank you, dear, that's where I was at. There are a lot of folks out there that will try to, tell you what the so-called rules of cosplay are. Number one, that you must look like the person who's playing that character. So, not true. You can cosplay anything you darn well please. Male, female, tall, short, whatever size, there's nothing you can't cosplay. Another fallacy that you will hear is that you must make everything from scratch, literally from the ground up. Also not true. I have seen fantastic costumes that were created by repurposing other things, that were crafted for these people, with, help from, other artists. And there is nothing wrong with using store-bought stuff. Absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And don't ever let anybody tell you that you're too tall, you're too short, you're the wrong body type, you're the wrong gender. Don't ever let anybody tell you what you can and can't do, because it's called cosplay for a reason. This is supposed to be fun. And there is nothing under the sun you can't do. As long as you're having fun with it, as long as you do consider your audience. There are some things that are, best, not done at a family-friendly event, for example. And yes, I have actually seen that. I've seen people turned away at the door because they weren't exactly family-friendly. Please don't make that mistake. But as long as you're considering your audience and you're having fun, there's nothing you can't do. Just for the record, we're nearly 50 years old. We have 5 grandchildren. We are going to be doing this until we literally cannot do it anymore.
I mean, if you're old, that works too, because there's a lot of fun old characters to cosplay.
As a matter of fact, it's true. Has anybody here gone to Dragon Con in Atlanta?
Wait,
Dragon Con?
I want to go so
Well,
bad.
I don't know any cons because I don't have money.
the last couple of years, and if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, there was an older lady. The last couple of years, they did her wheelchair
As the Iron
as the Iron
She
Throne.
cosplays in a fantastic Olenna Tyrell.
Yes.
She's about 85.
Yeah. And last year she had a sign that says, "I'm not dead yet."
Before that, it was me.
There was another gentleman. He was a veteran. Couldn't walk. He did a fantastic mashup of Iron Man and a mermaid, and his wheelchair actually, they had a buddy of his that modified his wheelchair to where it
will push
lifted
it
him
up.
up.
Ah, that's cool.
It
He
was
crafted-
fantastic.
He
You are
crafted
limited
every bit of it.
only by your imagination.
Yeah, there is nothing that you can't do
Yes.
in the world of cosplay.
Well,
There's
limited
nothing
also
you
by
can't
your wallet.
And you can always take a look, you know, if you ever wanted to take a look at some DragonCon, you know, the DragonCon website, even YouTube. If you look up just YouTube DragonCon, you'll see some fantastic, people post their videos all the time on things. And it helps give you ideas, not that you want to steal somebody's idea, but maybe you think, hey, well, think about that. How would that look over here with my character? Something on that level. It's just certain ideas, and that's what, let's just face it, that's what a lot of people get their ideas. You know, they modify it to fit theirs, you know, a little bit of here, a little bit of here, that's what everybody does.
Oh, yes. You know, if I could say one thing, you know, it's take some time, learn about history, because alternative history characters are some of the greatest things in the world that we do. Not just the steampunk, which is more, you know, Victorian era and it's very gadget heavy. It's also a genre called diesel punk. Matter of fact, the diesel punk of pop culture is upstairs in this building right now. His name's John Pica. He's one of the most fantastic magicians I've ever known. He's also a fantastic author, and he is the diesel punk, the prophet of pop culture. He is the diesel punk guy. So think more Art Deco, think 1920s, 1930s, early 1940s, that era right there. It's a fantastic thing. It's more about, you know, just the clothing, and it's not so gadget heavy. But there's another genre to, you know, explore. There's also a little thing that we do called post-apocalyptic. What would characters look like? What if is my favorite question. What would characters look like if they survived the end of the world? They probably wouldn't be in the greatest shape. You know, costumes would look ragged, be a little dusty, you know, considering that, you know, all of the possible, you know, post-apocalyptic scenarios that are out there, the world has turned into a desert, the world has done this, the world has done that, society has collapsed. No, that's not a challenge.
Well, I mean, if you've seen Batman versus Superman, came out, they had
The nightmare sequence.
The nightmare sequence, where, you know, Bruce was dreaming. And, you know, and he had his leather, had his leather jacket on. Superman had kind of taken over in a way. But we took it a lot, that's what I was talking about, my post-apoc Batman. You know, mine is who am I? I'm some guy that escaped the city. Found my way into a back door into the Batcave. I discovered the remains of Bruce Wayne sitting in a chair. Has an injury. You know, he's in his chair, and of course he's passed away. But the fact is, I was able to prove myself through the back computer's challenges, all the traps he set up, and I took on the genre, the guise of the Bat. My son plays a new character called the Nightmare King, almost like the Scarecrow, but it's all futuristic and apocalyptic in a way. You know, this is later on in the future. She plays a more of apocalyptic Catwoman.
Oh yeah.
And so it becomes very interesting in what you think about what can you do, how can you change. And we even came up with a story arc of, well, what about the other Superman? Well, we found out, you know, certain things, everybody, you know, certain characters have changed.
It's all about telling a story.
Yes, tell the story.
And this is what we do a lot when we have time. We sit around and say, what if this? What if that? How would the story develop? What would people look like? You know, what would their stuff look like? What would they do? How would they be? Well, how would they feel? We write stories on long car drives. We write story upon story, and that's basically what we do with our characters, is that we take these stories that we've come up with between the two of us, and we bring them to life.
In fact, that's how we get our characters. It is. It's amazing. We turn an 8-hour card drive, what seems like maybe into a few hours, with as much in-depth storytelling that we can. Ideas. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, where did it go? The backstory. And it's
Okay.
blossomed into something great.
Can you tell us about one of your ideas that I read about, your Chaos Zoo?
Ah, the Chaos Zoo.
There we go.
The Chaos Zoo is a new concept for us. Anybody familiar with old-fashioned circus sideshows?
Not the adults. But yes, yeah.
And we've decided to kind of capitalize on that. Picture a circus sideshow where all of the freaks.
Actually, the last unicorn, who's ever seen the animated show, The Last Unicorn?
Nobody, honey, that movie's way too old.
I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
things. Like the
Anyway,
labyrinth.
Mommy Fortuna's, what was it, Night Carnival?
Night Carnival.
You know, had all sorts of half-human, creatures and, creatures of light, creatures of night brought to light was the tagline for it. And there's going to be satyrs, half-human, half-goat.
Minotaurs.
There's going to be a minotaur that actually snorts. There's going to be a spider queen.
Possibly even
There's a-
harpy.
There's a black kitsune. Everybody's seen kitsunes in Japanese mythology, but nobody's ever seen a black one. We got one. And there will be more creatures as we find them and bring them to life.
And we'll have a barker too, somebody that will introduce the creatures will be caged for everyone's safety, of course. But
No, the cages will be open because
Lady
they're
Clark, please
told.
come downstairs to the
You can't
circulation
eat
desk. Lady Clark, please come downstairs
But yes,
to the elevator.
it's a fabulous idea.
And this is something that we'll be offering to local events and out-of-town events. It is exactly what we say it is. It is a traveling sideshow style exhibition filled with half-human creatures.
Sounds
I
fun.
keep thinking about a drone.
I love that.
Feel free to take one of our cards and contract us.
Absolutely.
Because we're always looking.
I can build anything. Yes, ma'am.
If you were to do a Wrinkle in Time character, which one would you be?
Oh, boy, you just opened up a can of worms there.
You remember the real forms of Mrs. What, Mrs. Which, and Mrs. Who? Those.
All three of those?
All of them.
How would you do all of them at once?
No, not all at
Well,
once.
not all at once.
You'd have to pick one at a time.
I see that. We've been talking about building a centaur for quite some time. And giving it rainbow wings and a blank faceless expression would be, just a matter of, doing the mask work and doing the proper overlay. I've even got plans to build a centaur that actually walks. Stairs might still be a little bit of an issue. We're still working out the bugs on that one there. That would be,
That's all about mechanics.
centaur stumbles going up steps, news at 11.
Right.
That would be a wonderful news story.
So you're building a pretty much a robot thing? Robot centaur?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. It's mechanical in nature. There are no electronics in it. There's a way to build it that's completely mechanical without having to wire a single thing.
Puppet?
Sort of, kind of, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is just because y'all mentioned satyrs. Have y'all ever thought about cosplaying any characters from the Percy Jackson?
Actually, yeah, we have. We haven't been able to really, grab hold of an idea just yet, but anything and everything interests us. And I have people, messages all the time on there, hey, have you ever thought about doing such and such? Have you ever thought about doing a mashup of this and that? We're always open for suggestions, always. Yeah, we do want to, present, cosplays and everything that people are familiar with and people like, as long as we can kind of do it our way. But, we're always open for suggestions about how to do stuff. So it's there, we just haven't quite got there yet.
But everything for us is still, we've only been doing it for 5 years now. And, it's continuously, we just grow a little more every year.
Yeah, ever evolving.
To be honest, she mentioned Kitsune. Before, before she ever brought that up, I would have been blindsided. I was like, what's that? Because I'm not as familiar with a lot of the Japanese culture on that one. But our daughter brought it up, and I thought, now there you go. There's something that's totally, that's not seen all that much.
Yes, life is too short to be ordinary.
Yeah. And this for us, at the age of 48, our busy world, this is our escape. I mean, the teenage kids, you see a lot of teenage young adults do this, but as adults, we grew up in the 80s.
We put the play in
Yeah.
cosplay.
And this is our escape. This is our escape from reality of the world into something that
This
we
is
know.
also the reason why we're not allowed to babysit the grandchildren, you realize that?
And it's also why we got kicked out of the restaurant.
We got kicked out of the mall in Clarksville.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, we went in costume with mask on.
We have
and
been
were-
to
Oh, yeah, they
previous
probably thought you
years.
were
Yeah.
part of some weird cult
Yeah,
or something.
in previous years, we have, every time that we've done an event in Clarksville, we usually stop by the mall afterwards, kind of put the word out about events and, let people take pictures with, the weirdos dressed up in funny costumes. And after some stuff that was in the news had happened, which, everybody I'm sure already knows, so I won't elaborate on it. Unbeknownst to us, they had changed the rules at the mall where nobody could come in wearing a mask. Now, mind you, yes, it was post-apocalyptic costumes, Batman and Catwoman. We divested ourselves of everything that could possibly be construed as a weapon, because I will not do that. I will not bring stuff like that in the mall. But because we were still wearing masks, we got 6 steps in and they said, you gotta go.
Okay, so.
And as by Satyr, we stopped in, and I like doing this. We stopped in to eat at Charlie's, and there was this young little girl.
About 4 years old.
4 years old. And she was playing, and she kept looking over and smiling. Well, on our way out, I snuck up behind the booth a little bit, and her parents knew it, and they were okay with it. I didn't go up and throw a boo, but I just kind of lifted myself up and to wave, and so.
She screamed so
yeah.
loud that
Everybody stopped
everybody in the
and
whole
looked at her.
restaurant immediately fell silent.
Yeah, like I was being a child, I'm like, okay.
And this
well,
is the
there we
point
go.
where I'm grabbing him going, okay, we gotta go now. There are certain do's and don'ts and all
Yeah.
that.
I thought we were cool until I guess I got a little too close to her. I mean, I didn't touch her, but it's just like,
Yes.
we were playing earlier with it, so, but.
Yeah, and those are just, some of the kind of unspoken do's and don'ts. Don't try to scare people unless, they're gonna be okay with it, because not everybody is okay with suddenly having somebody in a mask popping up right in their face, and, you can badly startle some people.
And it wasn't on
Or
purpose,
get hurt.
it wasn't.
No, I know.
It just happened to be that she didn't think I was.
Another thing is another good do and don't. Do not, please, 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 never do what a young Harley Quinn cosplayer did to him about 3 years ago. We were out on a very crowded street. It was at Dragon Con. There's tons and tons of people there. This young lady was having a very good time, probably a little too good of a time. She was also carrying an extraordinarily large Harley Quinn mallet. And he's in Satyr cosplay, which does, entail horns on the head, prosthetic ears, prosthetic on the face. These things are put on very precisely with, some very, very, tight, sticky stuff, which means any movement and all that, if it's too sudden, could be a little bit painful. She walked by and she hit him square on the head with
Fortunately, it
that
wasn't
mallet.
hard, but it was just enough that she's lucky she didn't break anything. Yeah, I think it shook loose a couple things, but.
Yeah, we had to
we
take
were
him
able
back to the
fix.
hotel and re-glue some things, but I was
Yeah.
not real happy, obviously, he was not either. And there's no sense in ruining somebody's good time, you know, I mean, it's okay to be excited, it's okay to be in character, only to the point where you're not invading somebody else's personal space unless you've been invited to. And my biggest thing, you know, the only other do and don't that I have ever mentioned to anybody is about props, other people's props. Please, 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 if you see somebody who's got something really cool, whether it's a costume, a prop, anything like that, please, always approach and ask permission to touch it. These aren't toys. These are things that a lot of people have crafted meticulously with lots of love, lots of care, oftentimes blood, sweat, and tears, and usually a great deal of money. And it is, you know, just beyond not a cool thing to walk up and just grab something out of somebody's hands, or do what a lady who was actually our age, I was a little surprised, did to me, same Dragon Con. I was standing at a stoplight waiting to go across the street, and I felt somebody tugging on the prop that I had just spent 6 months painting and building. I'm like, I thought it was him playing a joke on me, and I turned around, and it was some woman going, hey, that's kind of cool, what's that made of? I'm like, do you have any idea how long I spent building that? So those are really the only do's and don'ts of it. The main thing is, do you, have fun. You're only limited by your imagination. And we're always here to help.
Thank you very much for all the advice and
Is
for
this
helping us out today.
Absolutely.
If I can do a shameless plug for the library, we do have some how-to cosplay books upstairs in the nonfiction section, so there's some interesting tidbits there. And for the boxes of junk that you mentioned, as far as bits and pieces and things, the Sumner County Restore is out there today beside the TARDIS, and they have lots of fantastic boxes of junk that you can do all sorts of fun stuff with. So, but thank you guys